She is back. On our first episode, we walk you down memory lane and look at some of the past season's most highlighted episodes.
And I'm just curious, even as we think about our 30s, one of my mentors calls the 30s the turbulent 30s and the 40s the fortified 40s. Yes. And I don't know if you've both gone through your 30s and 40s. Let me not assume this is me, just making sure I'm keeping safe. But I'm hoping you've gone through your 30s and 40s, or maybe you're around your 30s or 40s. I think that I'm being safe.
Quite safe.
I know. But did you find your 30s turbulent? If you think about your 30s, what was it like? What stood out for you? Anything you would do different if you went back to your 30s? Because, I think, in my opinion, I feel like sometimes the 20s felt very turbulent for me. Like you're trying to figure this out. I took such high risks. I guess you just feel like you don't have too much. There are no children to come home to, so you just take risks and things like that. But how did the 30s feel like? Maybe your late 20s and the 30s. What was that like for you? And what would you tell the young women watching about your 30s? Just when you think about a woman's journey, this is approaching your halftime, so how did the 30s look like for you?
Turbulent 30s, because I think that defines it for me.
Oh yeah?
My 30s were fairly turbulent.
Yeah.
This is a time I'm trying to really discover who am I, It's a time I'm trying to settle in as a mother. It's a time you're really put on a scale as a person. What are you really made of? And so I found myself in seasons of darkness a lot of times. Yeah. I felt that I was in a cave all by myself. And it was a very emotionally difficult season.
Okay.
A very difficult season in the sense that it was hard to even define what the problem was for myself. And so it took community around me to uphold me.
Okay.
And that is why it's very important to have community who you share values with.
Yeah, sure.
One of the biggest challenges I had is that I was a first-time mother of twin girls.
Wow.
So you can imagine already being a mother is a challenge.
Yeah.
Now they come, boom, two human beings. And with two human beings coming in, so you can imagine also the level of support that has to be around you. You need, more home managers. You need, So even just learning how to manage that, because you see, our homes are supposed to be havens. Now this challenge is right at the epicenter of your haven. What do you do? So for me, I think that was a great challenge, but I thank God for the people who are around me who upheld me.
Okay.
So the 30s were quite turbulent. Okay. But I thank God that I was able to still come out because of being held by people.
Would you do something different if you went back? Let's say you go back and you find out today you're pregnant and you're having the twins, would that change anything, or would you do it the same way? It would change
a lot.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more.
I would accept help. I would not die trying to figure it all by myself.
I don't know what happens, when it's your first child, you don't want to...
I'm telling you, I was trying to be, the solution to every problem.
Yeah.
I would sit back and accept help.
Okay.
Secondly, I think I would believe in myself a little bit more. In terms of, I would build my internal resources.
Okay.
Because also when too much goes wrong around you, it has a way of getting into the core of who you are.
Yeah.
So I think also just taking a back step and building the internal resources so that you can be able to face the challenges that you're going through.
That's true.
So yeah, I think I would change a little bit. I would tweak it.
Okay. Thank you for being authentic. No, that's so helpful, because I think I was just listening to you and I'm like, I don't know what happens to us when we're in our 30s or when you're having that first child. I don't know whether you want to prove a point and just so I can handle all this by myself. I don't know what it is.
Could also be trust issues.
Yes, exactly.
Which could have a background from somewhere.
Yes, like she said, nature, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what were your 30s like for you?
Really, maybe I track back a bit on the 20s.
Yeah.
The 20s to 30s are really very productive years.
Yeah.
You may not realize the fruits, but you plant a lot during the 20s to 30s. That is a time to really, you start adulting for real.
That's true.
I mean, I have, my children are in their 20s.
Wow.
And I know that they keep talking about adulting and how adulting is not easy. And of course, I keep telling them adulting will get better. Of course, as you build those internal resources and feel much more confident in who you are becoming, because you are in a sheltered life. Like my daughter always tells me that when you're in school, you're so sheltered, you actually live in a bubble.
It's true.
Then you come out and you start adulting and your bubble just suddenly bursts. So in your 20s to 30s, there is that bursting of the bubble. You're taking baby steps to your adulting. And it is a time then to start intentionally building those resources. Those resources, emotional resources in terms of social support, as you're saying, you could have taken more support. But the issue of proving a point is just asking also, who are you proving this point to? And sometimes we are social beings, we really want to belong. And therefore, sometimes you do things for the sake of friends, not for the sake of your own self. And it is important that as you now get into your 20s, 30s and onwards, you start learning to differentiate, that you're not, that you stop, because if you are really driven by doing stuff for people to prove a point to people, then what about you? You are really like a passive participant in your life because you are reacting to what people demand, whether it is friends and people. Maybe you you have this, and I react quickly thinking I need it too, and probably I don't need it. You go and you know, bust the bank. The why you feel those turbulent 30s is because the challenges of life coming at you and the demands of life coming at you, you feel you're not equally resourced to respond. I keep saying, eat well, eat healthy, exercise, basic hygiene. You know, when I talk to young people, I tell them beauty starts with soap and water. Not makeup,
extra.
not even all these other add-ons and accessories. Beauty starts with soap and water.
That's true.
So if you step out of the shower and you don't think you're beautiful, that is the naked truth.
I'm just thinking about your journey, what you've seen in life, you know, how do you figure out your purpose? And does everyone have a purpose? Maybe it's just the people who it's visible who have a purpose, and the others are just supposed to, you know, just figure it out. You know, there's you guys, and then there's everybody else. You know, what would you tell that person?
One of the biggest things that when I was younger and growing up and trying to figure out, for me, my age was also 16 actually. It was my last year of high school. I finished a little bit early, and I was sitting on the sofa and I was just like, Lord, what do you want me to do with my life? Like, where do you want me to go? And what am I here for? Because to be honest, all growing up, I thought about, and I know everybody's different, but all I thought about was getting married and having children.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's what I wanted. And so here I am.
Do you want to give a message to your husband through this? I'm kidding.
You know, if you'd asked me when I was a little girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wasn't one of those girls who was like a teacher, a lawyer, this or that. I just wanted to be wife and mama. By the time I was finishing high school, the possibility of being wife and mama was not yet in front of me. So it's like, okay, what do I do in the meantime? And how do I do something meaningful? You know, not just exist or take up space. And I remember at that time, one of the books that I was reading, the question that was posed in that book is, what need is right in front of you that you can meet in your world? Wow. And the writer of this book, he said that wealth comes from two things. You're either solving a big problem for a few people, or you're solving a little problem for a lot of people. And he said, if you want to know what you've been designed for, and he's a believer who wrote this book, or what your purpose is, or along that line, look around your world and ask yourself the question, what need is in my world that my giftings, my talents, my passions align with? It's like I would look at a tech problem and just call my husband and be like, come figure this out. It doesn't stoke my passion. Something in me isn't like, oh, I want to be the answer. I want to solve. I want to be a solution giver in that area.
Yeah.
So if I was to sit in front of someone who's just like, man, I'm trying to figure it out, whether it's the 18-year-old or the empty nester now, kids are gone, and it's like, okay, I still have another 30, God willing, 40 years on this earth. What am I going to do? That would be the question I think that would help lead down the right path of thinking is, what need is in your world? And where does it intersect with either your talents, your passion, or your giftings? And start praying and thinking in that direction. Because I don't think God created us to be miserable beings who, you know, I'm doing this because I'm good at it, but I actually don't enjoy it. I hate it. I'm not thriving. I don't think that's what God intended. I think He created us to come alive where He's purposed for us to be. It just is that thing of, man, I'm alive here. And I agree with what Shiko was saying. It might even be seasonal. It just might be for now, this is just where I sense the purpose of God in what I'm doing. And it might shift with season or time. But that would be the question I would ask them, because I think sometimes the answer to a question is a good question.
It's true. It's true. You know, figuring out your purpose is are there steps, you know? I'm just curious, do you have in mind steps of helping someone get started on their purpose or getting started on this new thing? You know, I have my job, my day job, like you said, and you want to do your purpose as your side hustle. Top of mind, are there things that come to mind that you feel would be steps to succeed in that journey?
I want everybody to understand that there's a God-shaped purpose hole in your life. And as Rebecca said, it is about looking at what is that icks you about the world that you need to solve for, and you have the solution and the recipe for it in you. Is there 1, 2, 3 steps to getting your purpose? There is none. Yeah, I always say, sometimes you wait for the money, because sometimes some people say, I want to have all the money in the world before I can pursue my purpose. I want to have the right environment. I want to be at a certain status in life or society. If you wait for all these things, you'll be overtaken by events. But I feel like many of us have been called to be in the middle. You might not have the billions of Bill Gates or afford to be poor as Mother Teresa, but you can do with what you have, what you can.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's what I tell people. And for me, that impact of having a loving mom and some food was my purpose at that time. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and as you grew up when I was in high school, and I was good at maths. Teaching Form 1 and Form 2 maths came naturally to me.
Wow,
yeah, and when you meet some of these people later on, you say, hey, you helped me move that car bump. Yeah, so it is doing what you have with what you have, what you can with what you have. Don't wait for everything to be in place before you start, because eventually you look and say, don't integrate. And purpose takes risk taking. I always tell people, it will be uncomfortable. People will look at you weirdly and question your sanity, for me especially. But when you sleep at night, I always tell people, you sleep at night and saying, thank you, Lord, for what you've achieved with my life today. It's not going to be easy. It's hard. But it's going to be worth it. When you look back, when I look back at my life, I say, I'm happy I made that move, because it has made such a big difference in the society, in a person's life. And those people might never even know you, but it's worth it.
What have been the challenges? Like how and I know you've touched on it a bit, but how difficult has it been? And how have you handled that? You know, do you get, I know I have a close friend who's a single mom, and she's like, it hits home mainly on Sundays when you go out to a restaurant, and it's like everybody, you know, whether they're happy or not, like she's like, you can tell this husband and wife are not talking, but people are sitting there having their pizza and it's a family. Then you're there with your kids, and you know, she had to work so hard to get over that. So I don't know what your challenges have been, you know, just raising these children and you know, just in the sort of setting you found yourself in?
These things don't come in all at once. You just have waves. You have moments where you can see there's a gap or there's a longing in the kids, and you can't do anything about it in terms of, I'm female. You know, I've never tried to be mom and dad. I'm just a mom. I'm female. So just everything, questions around, you know, like how comes, or even kids, you know, kids can be so insensitive. So my daughter will come and say, yeah, my friend was asking, how comes our dad doesn't live in our house? Like, and how comes God is just our dad and is everybody else's dad also? You know, so I'm like,
innocent.
Which child is that who asked you? Let me talk to them.
Right? Let me deal with them.
Let me deal with them. You know, but then in that moment, just thinking, okay, God, like, how do I answer this? Or like, there's something that she's longing for, you know? Oh, I want to be picked up, and you know, and that kind of thing. Or when there's an issue where, like, my son now is a teenager, now he's 14, and I can sense that sometimes he has this like maybe he's really upset with me, but there's only so much he can say and so much he can do because I'm female. But he's just probably looking at me like, I could crush you, woman. And I was just thinking, like, if there's a man here, he would sort you out. So just those moments where you can just definitely feel like masculine energy or fatherly presence would still some things, would reassure in a way that that, I mean, like, as women, we comfort and we embrace and we love, but there's a quiet stability and security that men bring that, you know, I mean, I can't give in and of myself. So those moments are difficult. I think that I think the issue with like school events, those ones can be a bit tricky because okay, you don't have a dad to bring, or that, like, it's Father's Day. But I'm glad again that I said, like, my dad has been there, my brother-in-law, my cousins. So many of my cousins will offer to take my son on hikes, to take my son to do fun things. The end of last year, they went for a circumcision camp. My brother-in-law is the one who took my son and my nephew. So things like that I feel grateful for. I think sometimes maybe the other challenge is for me myself as a single parent is just the perception that people have sometimes, and nobody has ever said it to me. I've never felt anybody cheating me that way, but just the narrative where people want to hide their families or their husbands from the single mom because she might try and take the husband.
Oh,
and it's
no,
like,
I didn't see you going that way. I was thinking something different.
No
way.
Yes, exactly. No. And then even sometimes this narrative where men don't want their married wives to hang around many single women because they look so independent. Maybe their wife is going to be corrupted and want to be independent. I'm like, but they're grown. Like, I don't have time to be trying to chase somebody's husband or chase someone's man. Like, my hands are full. Like, I have to think about bedtime. I have to think about this and the other. I think maybe the last point I'll speak about is needing or wanting somebody to bounce ideas off of. I don't know if that was your experience also. I mean, like, sometimes it's like, I just want an off day. Like, I don't want to be mom today. I want my mom. I also want my mom. Like, I don't, like, everything is on you. Like, you might be tired, you haven't slept, but your child also hasn't slept. Like, and Angela, put yourself aside. Like, you have to keep serving the kids, you have to keep showing up for them. Even things to do with, like, when you're having down days or like you're feeling really, really weighed down, you don't get to bring that out. I mean, of course, sometimes you'll tell your child, oh, today mom is not feeling so excited. But I mean, that can't be a whole week. Your kid, you need to show up for your kids because they need to be able to have a place of safety and comfort and that kind of thing. So just sometimes just feeling like, okay, it's the end of the day, I'm so tired, I've come back home, but I still need to show up. I still need to give my best. I still need to have joy. I still need to pray over them. I need to encourage them. Because what's going on with me is for me and God to deal with, and other adults to deal with, because I can't pour that on my kids. So sometimes just wishing, like, you could just be like, you know, you put them to bed, you cook dinner, I think that part is really, I think, maybe the heaviest part for me.
I can imagine.
No off days.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's funny that you share some of these things, and I think it's things every parent goes through, but it's heavier on you because you're going through that by yourself. But like you said, I think earlier, you know, that, you know, God's got you, right? You know, and I think that helps to just, like sometimes I look at, I have two very close friends who are single moms, and their kids are always like topping in school, you know, and I know right now they're in high school, but I remember in the primary school, way before I had kids, I remember I'll tell myself, like, there's a special grace for these kids brought up by single moms. You know, like, I think God just sorts out some other things just to make the journey lighter. Those ones who have husbands, like, let them be the ones to deal with maybe school issues. Let me make it easier for her. You know, and I think God's really genuinely just, and maybe it doesn't have to be school, but it's certain things that He will use to make it lighter.
For sure.
What have been your challenges? I know it's a bit different, but have you had any challenges, especially since becoming blended family? And I know you talked about some, but I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to share.
The one challenge is being in the middle. You know, because sometimes your husband will say, yeah, you know, he did this and this is wrong, and then your son will say, yeah, but so you don't know whose, sometimes you don't know whose side to take, because you're like, okay, let me take my husband's side because, you know, he's my husband. But then also, what is my son's, and I want him to feel heard, and I don't want him to feel it's now us against him. That has been such a major challenge and needed God's wisdom and grace. That's why at some point I told him, you know what, you have to come in. I cannot be a bad cop, good cop. You need to come in. And it's been a work. It's been a work, but I'm beginning to see the fruits of it. I would have to say another challenge in being a blended family, especially when you're the one who comes with a child, is people think you should just be grateful. Like, you should be grateful. You got a man who didn't have a child.
Like, can you stop
Excuse me, I had something to offer. That is why he came. And he got even a son out of it. I thought, like, I'm the one, you should be grateful that you have me. But it's actually, people speak it like you should just, it's like you are the inferior one. And you have been favored. This magnificent. It is like, wow. Picked. Like you know, you should be thanking God every day on your knees. That this is what happened. And that can be a lot of pressure, because people are like, why are you complaining? You know, at least you got a man who didn't have kids. You're like, oh Lord Jesus.
Miss me with that.
Hold me.
No. No. That's a thing. I guess another challenge for me has been the kids. Now, when I got my girls and my son, he also used to not having them. So it was, I have actually been having to be so intentional, like, don't say your sisters. You know, you need to love them. You know, you need to see them, because in his mind, they're just those kids. That's how he used to treat them.
Especially because it's like the gap is
he's like, these kids. And having to get him to, you know what, spend time with these kids. Spend time, just love them. These are your sisters. Because if anything happens, that's who you're going to have. That has been a challenge. And I kept thinking, maybe I should have waited. Sometimes, should I have waited till he was an adult when I get the kids? But I guess it didn't have really worked, because now when he's an adult, what are we going to do? But those are some of the challenges. And the thing is, it can't be perfect from the get-go. People think, it's going to, no, it's work. It's being intentional. It's like, you know, you said you have to just put your feelings aside. It's like, what's the best for them? How are we going to work together? There's some things I have to now get down and listen to him. Okay, how are you seeing us going? What's your vision for this family? And now fitting it. Because now, as a single mom, I had my own vision.
And you just, you start with yourself, you're like, okay, this is how we are going to do it. And you move on.
Now I have to listen, and he says, no, he's going to this school because of this. So it's always a learning experience. As you go.
So pre-conception and, you know, just the whole season before you conceive, how is that for you? What have you seen with women in this day? And is it, and I know you've practiced for a very long time, do you find that infertility is a bigger issue now, and I know that's a big question really to just tackle in a show, but do you find it's an issue now? And in your expertise, what's the reason? You know, why is it harder for people to conceive? I've had people say it's now because of social media, so we just hear it more, but maybe it was there even those days. I don't know what your thoughts are as you work with so many women in this season of trying to conceive and then conceiving and just what comes with that. Any of you can go first.
Ladies first. I shall be the gentleman here.
So for me, most times, yes, you will, when somebody knows what you do, I think they even come to me first before, because most times they're like, oh, I've been doing this, I've been trying to conceive. But one of the things that I do is fertility awareness counseling. Some people don't even know conception. when does it happen? They don't know their cycles. They don't understand their monthly cycles. So for me, that's where it comes in. And for most times, I'd be like, oh, have you done A, B, C, D? Have you seen a doctor? Some of them even haven't. They're like, I've been trying to conceive for three years, maybe. And they are afraid because there's a stigma attached. Sometimes they can't afford it, or there's a stigma attached to just going and saying, I've been trying to conceive. And so we'll usually go through that conversation, and I'll ask them, do you understand how your cycle works? We have this misconception that you conceive on the middle of your cycle, but sometimes that's not it. If your cycle is longer, it could be, how do you do the math? And sometimes that's all that person needed. But sometimes I'm like, okay, no, I think for you, you need to see your gynecologist or your doctor to be able to go through this process. Sometimes it's diet. What's your diet like? So that fertility awareness counseling session includes that. But I think, yes, there's been more conversations about it. People now becoming more open. But I think also just culturally, the way we are eating, our lifestyle, some of us are obese or have other underlying conditions. So those have also increased, I think, in the recent years. And that has contributed to how our fertility is, how we were fed. I keep telling, I'm so passionate. I have a background in nutrition, and I'm so passionate about the first 1,000 days of a child's life. Oh, really? How they are fed affects their future. And so when we talk about exclusive breastfeeding and feeding our children right for the first 1,000 years, a baby girl is born with all her eggs. So during pregnancy, if mama, you're not eating well, it will affect that little girl's eggs in the future. So when
here we are trying to keep our weight low, so we're on potions,
and not eating right.
Oh my gosh, and you might just be affecting
you know, the fertility of that little girl you're carrying or that little boy you're carrying. So those are some of the things we talk about preconceptually. But most times we refer them.
Let's do that right now.
Okay, here we go.
Let's refer.
Doctor, take it home. Okay, you know, it's interesting. I think health-seeking behavior in Africa generally is not as good as in the West. That's what she's talking about, preconception. Because rites of passage, we, go to school, then after that so many vijana, then you get a good job, and then you get a good wife, hallelujah, and then after that you expect, it's just natural.
The babies just come,
Not really. You know, how the Lord taught us about, you don't plan for war if you don't think you're going to win it. You have to plan for this thing, and I think pregnancy is something you really have to budget and plan for. It's not an emergency, it's a 9-month event. But you have to ensure that, we have to ensure that mothers are healthy enough to go through pregnancy, because pregnancy can be traumatizing both to body and mind. Husbands sometimes don't even know what to expect when their wives, things, it can become as cold as winter in the house, if you know what I mean,
It's true.
Sila. So it can be difficult. So it's important, the message that we're trying to get out there is preconception counseling. Come and see us way before. We can even help you to some degree in sex selection. To some degree.
Oh, for real?
To some degree. It's not
now you tell me now. 3 boys later, but I'm happy.
Yes, to some degree. We get asked these things. We want to ensure that a mother is nutritionally up to standard. Are there any diseases that she has which could, from like, diabetes, thyroid issues? What's up with the womb? Is she regular? We can also help them as to timing, when to conceive, so that they can have that wonderful, famed holiday to go and, fruitful holidays, we call them, and come back. So there's a lot that can be done way before. Talking about infertility, it is on the rise. It is on the rise for various reasons. The commonest reason when I was in med school for infertility was possibly spoiled tubes. Now, a woman's reproductive tree consists of her ovaries, and then the egg gets into these tubes. They're like hands like these, literally. So if you don't mind, you are 2 ovaries, very fruitful, very productive. You produce the egg, and the egg is suspended, and then there are these hands at the ends of the tubes that go looking and grab the egg in the literal come baby. The come baby come moment began there. It didn't begin with Miguna. Okay, so they are swallowed into the tubes. Now, if tubes are messed up by infection, like sexually transmitted diseases, maybe because this particular couple, one or the other, in their past contracted something. And then we'll see inability to conceive. But even so, there are things we can do to help. We can diagnose and we can help. And then is when we can plan for the pregnancy and sort out things early. Mapema and your best, we can sort these things out early.
No, I like that because, you know, so many times I think, just like you're saying, just lacking the information, you know, and not planning, like you've said, you know, I think could lead to so many complications for so many years. And then now when you finally do things right, you're like, I've wasted those 3 years, 5 years, and things like that. So I like that.
And now that you say that, it brings me on to an interesting story to exemplify and embellish this point.
Yes.
As a young doctor, I was working in a certain hospital. We're doing a ward run, and there in front of us was this lady in tears. And she was having a child. She was pregnant, about 20 weeks thereabouts at the time. And the story was that in this particular pregnancy, she had a baby that had a condition we called hydrocephalus, which means a water brain. The brain is really complex. It's bathed in fluid, and there are channels to drain that fluid that have to form. So there's production and drainage that keeps us like this. But if the drainage channels are blocked, and then that means fluid accumulates in the brain, and you have children born with slightly larger skulls, brains, and it looks a bit, it's disconcerting. Procedures have to be done to have unnatural drainage to sort that out. It is sorted out or prevented largely by taking folic acid. Folic acid tablets cost 1 shilling per tablet, and it's 1 tablet per day. So we're talking about 30 shillings per month will avoid getting a child with hydrocephalus. Now, to complete the story, her very first child, this was her 3rd pregnancy. Her first pregnancy, she did not know about folic acid supplementation, and this has to happen from way before you're pregnant, not when you find out that you are. That's too late. It's not very common, but still happens. But it can be prevented. So in her first child, she did not know about folic acid supplementation, did not take folic acid, and got a child, special needs with hydrocephalus. Devastating, but all children are precious. Second baby, she was armed and dangerous with the knowledge. She took her folic acid supplements, got a normal child. 3rd pregnancy, this one, she thought, I'm okay. I don't need to take it. Did not take. And now she was here with her 2nd child with hydrocephalus. And she was battling the decision as to whether this pregnancy should live or not. That's a difficult place to be because as Christians, I mean, I'm totally pro-life. And so counseling, because the children can still live. They're precious to us. But this can be prevented. And it's not the only thing. There are many other things we can prevent. By simple, sometimes complex solutions can lend themselves to simple complex problems can be sorted out by simple solutions. That's the point.
Thank you for sharing that. Just speak to any mother. You know, I know you've seen miracles in your journey. You know, I won't limit you to what you want to say, but there could be a mother out there, I don't know, stressed about conceiving, or that, you know, where diapers will come from. You know, whatever you feel in your heart to say, even as we close, I'll just give you a chance to say that.
Okay. Motherhood is such a blessing and such a joy. And the one thing that I tell every mother is that it's not up to you. There is your maker who made this baby. They say, you knit me in my mother's womb. And that baby, the person who has given you that baby, as Daktari said, we are pro-life. That is your confidence that God is the one that knit that baby and knows exactly what that baby needs. And God will equip you with every single thing that you need to be able to grow that baby and have that baby to be a productive member of society in the future. And so it's just that trust. Continue praying. Even if it might look very bleak, it might look very hard, but keep on trusting and praying God. And even that God brings people your way, that support system that helps you get to the other end. But the Lord shall sustain you and shall help you bring, just have that comfort in knowing that God has you. He's got this. And so you just need to trust him.
God loves mothers. I mean, Jesus was in his mother's womb at some point, kicking away, I mean, he really did. And he was delivered normally, so these things are happening. God is still here and he hasn't changed his mind. He loves babies and he loves mothers.
Amen. He loves babies and he loves mothers. That's beautiful. And yes, we know that, Mary is the mother of Jesus, but I don't know, I never thought about him being a child and kicking in the mother's.
I mean,
so amazing.
He had to learn how to hold his bowels too. I mean, he grew up like any other kid. He wasn't like, having potty trained, like, Jesus, come here. You know?
And I'm so grateful that you're here, because I'll be honest with you, I spoke to a lot of moms, just trying to see if any of them would be willing to share their story. And they're like, Faith, it's so difficult. I don't think I have courage yet to talk about it. So we honor you, and we're grateful for you being here today.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious, how did you figure this out? You have these babies, and all that. Like, at what point did you know there's something wrong? What was your story? What is your story? Like, how did it happen? Do you just look at the child and you can tell? Did it take a hospital visit? Maybe just shed a bit of light.
This not being my first child, I was oblivious to the change that I did not want to see. My husband then noticed and said, Njoki, there are differences in the twins, and you can see they're not catching up. And he was quite well versed in terms of diet and what it does to our health and our physically, especially children. Our first child, we noticed, we gave him everything that he wanted. And with that, it had the effects that were a diagnosis of ADHD. But that was as a result of the food that we were giving him. It was not healthy, it was not nutritional, so he was not functioning well. He could not stay still in class when he's just consumed an energy drink. Now, for that basis, did we let the teacher define him for that? So from that basis, having learned from our firstborn, then we knew cut out what is not right for a child to consume at a specific age.
Let me get you. So now, he was, maybe the teachers would say he has ADHD.
He was actually diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh, he was diagnosed with
Yes, and by then the school gave us options that he should have asked that I pack chewing gum for him so that he could have that in class when he was too hyper. And when we looked at each other with my husband and we thought, but is that the right way? Is that the way we were told we should attend an academic lesson? So in the background, we realized it's the nutrition. So we changed the diet, and that helped him actually stay still during class time. But he was still a very active boy. And then the diagnosis went, he's too active. And then so I went back to my first teacher, who is my mom, and said, but boys are that way. So give him things to do. Let him burn that energy. So that was the solution provided, and we addressed it, and it's been fantastic for him. So coming down to now the second ones, that's where the difference was clear, because one was going this way and hitting all the checks. And the other one was when we're not moving at all. And he was crying often. He started crying often. He was not very social. He didn't want to play around. And he was very specific with the toys that he wanted. And my brother was doing experiments with him, and we had all types of balls in the house, different colors, purple, blue, yellow, red. And he was always attracted to that one red color. So we thought, okay, he has some peculiar habits. And that's when my husband said, no, Njoki, he's on the autism spectrum, because I've been looking at, I've done my own research. So he was also an active parent then to know as a parent, my child I'm noticing certain things about my child. So the first responsibility is with a parent. Check through, have some information as to what is missing in the gap, so that when I go to a medical practitioner, we're having an engaging conversation. I'm just not in a type of 844 school being told, this is it, this is it, this is it. And at times it can be very discouraging, because you're getting a lot of negative information. So then how do you process all that? I didn't want to, because it was quite scary. I just didn't want to look at it.
I guess as mothers, we never want to, hear anything. If you want to see my claws, say something negative about my child. Right?
Yes. But he was persistent. Do something about it. So then it was, he was busy, so the onus was on me. Do something about it. So then you do something about the first instance that you notice. Don't fight it. It's a dragon that you don't want to look at. That you have to face it, just like any other conditions that you have in your life that are not so pretty.
But
then you have to address it. Yes, so that's the first thing. The next, if I knew what I know now, Faith, then I would have more compassion and love towards myself first, because then this has happened to me as a mother, what do you do first? Then that condition or that love, you have to now develop it within, or go to your maker and say, God, this is happening. I don't like it. But just because you don't like it, you have to deal with it. So then you have to deal with it from a strong position, and that strong position is one of love, and one that we disregard as being very simple, but it's actually where we draw our strength from. That you have that love in your heart. So once you have that love in your heart, it will help you love your child and then see him as that human child. And it's the condition that we don't like. Because then you look at that condition, we've already labeled it, and you're labeling it on the child. That's not really very kind, is it?
That's true.
Yeah, so then you start from that position. So then I was fighting it because I don't want it. I just want it normal, regular, like the other kids. I've planned it well that he should tick, 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 go to this kindergarten. But then all of a sudden, I don't have that selection.
Oh, yes, and especially in this country.
Yeah. Before, you'd have any other housekeeper or nanny or help come through and do this, this and that. But now you're
With
more
this child, you have to be
careful. Like, who should I bring along in my house to help me now?
True.
Yeah. And if they don't see you also from a position of love, that you're loving your child, they're also not going to treat your child well. And that's the basis. The home is the basis, because what's going on in the home can only be reinforced when we start seeking out practitioners such as yourself. You're told you need an occupational therapy, a cognitive therapy, a speech therapist. Who are these? How do they function?
And that's why she's here.
That's why you're here. Yes.
Wow.
So information first.
Yeah.
Then as you seek out, I have some. We have some exchange of information, and not just telling me this and this.
Exactly.
Then I go home and do my homework, and then now we start translating it to how do we now work on this condition. At this age, we found out then.
Wow.
Where do I seek alternatives? What is it? Then you start breaking down, okay, if it's nutrition, then what? Yeah, it's also, you're told gluten-free, dairy-free. What does that mean? And am I able then to budget on that? And if I can't, then what?
Because it can be expensive.
It is. You have to take, you're told about supplements, and you'll... It can be a whole range, but then the more information you dig up, then you find out, okay, I don't have to take calcium supplements, but I can do traditional vegetables that have calcium. So then you start getting that knowledge and information, and you start translating it into your home, where the child is and where you are. And that's why you need to address that condition that you're all dealing with. It's also, the home is conducive to help him outgrow it, or to also cope with the challenges that they experience.
No, wow, thank you for sharing that. And you know, it's so interesting that, you know, a lot of even the mothers who I've met, who have experienced this, it's usually, funny enough, the fathers who notice, and the mothers are in denial. And, you know, because it's hard, you know, to just deal with it and come to terms with it. I don't know how it's been for you as a practitioner, you know, going into these homes and seeing these children. Maybe you have a story or two you could share. You know, does the therapy help, you know, or what works, you know, is it diet, you know, because there are all these things, as she's saying, there's information. And even from the point of how do you figure out, she's just given us some of this, you know, like the things to look out for, but maybe you can give us a bigger range of what to look out for as well.
Thank you, Faith. I just want to first congratulate you. It is good to see you have already accepted it, and you're ready to face it. And that is the first step of accepting. For sure, there's a challenge, and this is how we are going to work towards achieving the goals. So well done, and I hope you're also doing well. The boy is doing
up
well.
And down, but we keep moving. As long as we're moving forward, and we don't stand still.
For sure. So it's true. There's a bit of denial. You'd go to a house. you find both parents and they feel, yes, there's something, but they are still not accepting that word, that condition. Acknowledging that, yes, my child is in the spectrum, but they can for sure see there are some misses here and there when they check on the milestones. So the first thing definitely is to come to a point where you realize, yes, for sure, there's something, and you're able to now handle the challenges that are at hand. Okay. So the first thing that you want to look at, I would still go back down to development. Once a child is born, following the milestones from the first month. At 3 months we should have the social smile. A child should be smiling to you, and most of the times you'll find some of the social smile might delay. It might delay. So you look at the child and there's not that connection between you. And again, when you look at the development, we start with the head control. So when we have a child at 3 months or later and there's no neck control, it should raise an alarm. And I think it's for the parent, just like Njoki said, you should, first it starts with the parent. You notice, oh, there's a miss here. So you need to talk to the medical practitioner. When you're going for the immunizations, ask the staff, is my child doing well? How are we doing? What do I expect at this age? So that we are not delaying taking too much time. By the time you realize, oh, there's a problem, the child is 1 year old, and still the neck is still not yet very stable. So we need to have a developmental check, so that at this stage I expect this. If you don't get that, ask your medical practitioner so that they can advise you on what to do, so that the child moves, attains the developmental milestones at the right time. So for therapy will definitely be different, because every child is different and needs different attention and intervention. Thank you, Njoki. Yes, so depending with the child, you'll have different goals.
Correct. And to circle back, Faith, to what you were saying, as a parent, how the doctors do support. So you don't need to feel overwhelmed, like you're constantly checking, is he fine? Is she okay? Is she raising her hands? Is she talking? Because society also puts a lot of pressure on the parents if your child is not hitting a certain mark that they find normal. So the parents, as a parent, the doctor will give you the advice and the direct path. So it's up to you as you walk that path to find, is this the right path that he told me to follow? Do I need a second opinion? Then also when I'm told to go for therapy, what type of therapy is it? So they provide a lot of information. So the onus is on you as a parent then to go find out what type of therapy have I been told to look out for my child. In our case, for instance, when you asked what is occupational therapy, my son's hands were very weak. He could not grasp an object. He'd feel a lot of, his fingers were very sensitive also. So he could not hold a pencil or color. So through OT, or occupational therapy, so they do muscle reinforcements, we do lots of exercises with his fingers to strengthen him, that he's able to hold the fingers. So it's not academics on write this and this, is can I hold my fingers steady? Then eye contact, can I look at you for a long period without stopping? Because that will help me look at how you're moving your lips and be able to respond when I'm called. So these are small things that now that the interventions through therapy help these children. So the importance for you guys is to give us the tools that we need as parents, because also as a parent I don't want to be dependent on you, because I'm going to have this at home. Empower me that I also empower my family members to help the child and support and give him that.
Because it can also be pricey, right?
Yes, it is. It's very pricey. So then we work along towards knowing, reduce this for him at home. Like he doesn't like noise. But at times then we'll allow the noise so that you can
also get used to it.
Get used to it, because when we go out to a function, I can't keep going and say reduce the voice for his comfort.
Right. So you just
so you work along that. But it's important that you give us the tools that we need to go home and then practice. And then also give the caregivers the tools, the same tools. Then we teach him, and then he's also able to apply them for himself.
Just to add on that, home care because now you're going where the child is and where the caregivers are. The things we call home programs. So when I'm doing my thing, I need somebody to sit with me. So that they can see what I'm doing. I can train on basic things that they can be doing every other day, whether I'm in or I'm not. For a naughty, there are other things that we also look at, apart from Njoki, what Njoki mentioned, like now the body, you know, the sensory part of it. There are other skills, the life skills. We have toileting, we have feeding. If the child had weak muscles, even holding a spoon and feeding himself was a challenge. So we need to really work on that so that this child is able to feed himself or herself independently. There's also a bit of toileting.
Toileting is potty training?
Yeah, potty training. Yeah, so you need to make sure that this child learns how to go to the toilet. Maybe because of the sensitivity, the child doesn't feel comfortable sitting on a potty. So you need to really have a way of doing it until the child is comfortable. To just sit on the potty, relieve themselves, stand up, pull up the clothes. You know, those are the life skills that we normally train the children, so that as they grow up, at least they're independent in those areas. And then the other thing now will be things of dressing, you know, taking a shower. You know, there's some small things that we really don't, we really take for granted, but they really mean a lot. Njoki can attest to that. They really mean a lot. A child being able to play, even with a parent or with the siblings, because most of the times you find these children are loners. So you need to incorporate them in the family time.